What if your life of luxury was stripped away overnight? Pamela Appleton, the billionaire heiress, thought she had it all, until her father forced her to work as a hotel cleaner in a foreign country. No money, no privileges, no mercy. But what she discovered there would change her forever. Will she rise to the challenge, or crumble under the weight of reality? Pamela Appleton stirred awake, her head pounding like a drumline at a rock concert. The faint smell of stale champagne and cigarette smoke clung to the air, mingling with the faint floral scent of her designer perfume. She blinked against the harsh sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her father's mansion, the opulent chandelier above her casting fractured rainbows across the room. Her mouth felt like sandpaper, and her stomach churned as she tried to piece together the events of the previous night. The sound of a throat clearing snapped her to attention. She turned her head, wincing at the movement, and saw her father, Bruce Appleton, standing in the doorway. His arms were crossed, his tailored suit immaculate, and his expression was a storm of disappointment and anger. Behind him, the remnants of last night's party lay scattered across the room. Empty bottles, discarded heels, and a couch cushion that had somehow ended up in the fireplace. "Good morning, Pamela," Bruce said, his voice cold and clipped. "Or should I say, good afternoon?" Pamela groaned, pulling herself upright on the couch. "Dad, can we not do this right now? My head is killing me." "Your head?" Bruce stepped further into the room, his polished shoes crunching over a broken glass on the floor. "Do you have any idea what time it is? Do you have any idea how many times I've walked into this house to find you like this? Drunk, irresponsible, and completely oblivious to the world around you." Pamela rolled her eyes, reaching for a half-empty bottle of water on the coffee table. "It's not a big deal, Dad. I'm young. I'm supposed to have fun." "Fun?" Bruce's voice rose, echoing through the cavernous room. "You're 22 years old, Pamela. You're not a child anymore. While you've been out partying and wasting your life, I've been running an empire. An empire that one day you're supposed to inherit. But how can I trust you with that when you can't even take care of yourself?" Pamela opened her mouth to retort, but Bruce cut her off. "I've made a decision," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "You're going to work at one of our hotels. Not as my daughter, but as an employee. No special treatment, no privileges. You'll live like everyone else, and you'll learn what it means to earn your keep." Pamela stared at him, her mouth hanging open. "You're joking, right? Dad, come on. I don't belong in some hotel scrubbing toilets." "You don't belong here either," Bruce shot back. "Not like this. You have 1 month. If you can't handle it, you're cut off. No trust fund, no credit cards, nothing. This is your chance to prove yourself, Pamela. Don't waste it." Before she could protest further, Bruce turned on his heel and walked out, leaving her alone in the wreckage of her party. 2 days later, Pamela found herself standing in the lobby of the Appleton Hotel in Lisbon, Portugal. The grandeur of the place was undeniable: marble floors, golden accents, and a ceiling that seemed to stretch into infinity. But instead of checking into a suite, she was handed a uniform and a name tag that read, "Pamela Smith." "Housekeeping," the manager said, barely glancing at her. "You'll start on the 5th floor. Report to Maria for training." Pamela clenched her jaw, clutching the uniform to her chest. This was beneath her. She was a billionaire's daughter, not some maid. But the memory of her father's ultimatum echoed in her mind, and she forced herself to swallow her pride. The first day was a blur of exhaustion and humiliation. She scrubbed toilets, changed sheets, and dusted furniture until her arms ached. Her co-workers eyed her warily, whispering in languages she didn't understand. Maria, a petite woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, showed her the ropes but didn't coddle her. "You're slow," Maria said bluntly as Pamela struggled to fold a fitted sheet. "But you'll get faster. Just keep your head down and do the work." Pamela wanted to snap back, to tell Maria who she really was, but she bit her tongue. Instead, she focused on the task at hand, her frustration simmering beneath the surface. By the end of the day, Pamela was exhausted, her hands raw from cleaning chemicals and her feet sore from standing for hours. She collapsed onto the narrow bed in her tiny staff apartment, staring at the cracked ceiling. The room was a far cry from the luxury she was used to. No silk sheets, no room service, no view of the city skyline. Just four walls and the faint smell of mildew. As she lay there, the reality of her situation began to sink in. This wasn't just a punishment, it was a test. And if she wanted to prove her father wrong, she'd have to play along. But as she closed her eyes, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered, "What if he's right? What if I don't deserve that?" Pamela pushed the thought away, burying it deep. She'd show him. She just didn't know how yet. The days blurred together in a monotonous rhythm of early mornings, grueling shifts, and late nights. Pamela's hands, once soft and manicured, now bore the marks of her new reality. Calluses from scrubbing, small cuts from handling cleaning supplies, and a faint chemical burn from a mishap with a bottle of bleach. Her designer clothes sat untouched in her suitcase, replaced by the stiff, scratchy uniform that seemed to chafe more with each passing day. The hotel staff, initially wary of the new girl who moved with the grace of someone unaccustomed to labor, began to warm up to her, albeit slowly. Maria, her trainer, imagined that she was a girl from a rich family who went bankrupt or something like that, but she didn't ask. She became a mentor to Pamela, showing her the tricks of the trade. "Fold the corners like this," she demonstrated one afternoon, her hands moving quickly over a sheet. "And tuck it tight, or the guests will complain." Pamela nodded, mimicking the motion, but her mind was elsewhere. She couldn't shake the image of a guest from earlier that day, a man in a tailored suit who had snapped his fingers at her like she was a dog. "You missed a spot," he'd said, pointing to a nearly invisible smudge on the mirror. His tone had been dripping with condescension, and Pamela had bitten her tongue so hard she almost tasted blood. It wasn't just the guests, though. The more time she spent with her coworkers, the more she noticed the cracks in the system. Raj, the quiet man who worked in maintenance, often skipped lunch to save money for his family back home. Maria, despite her cheerful demeanor, carried the weight of being a single mother, juggling double shifts and a young son who barely saw her. And then there was Sophia, a young housekeeper who had confided in Pamela one evening about the manager's unfair treatment. Long hours, unpaid overtime, and a constant fear of being fired for the smallest mistake. Pamela had always known, in an abstract way, that her family's wealth came from the labor of others. But seeing it up close, feeling it in her aching muscles and hearing it in the tired voices of her coworkers, was a different story. One evening, after a particularly grueling shift, Pamela found herself sitting in the staff break room, a cup of bitter coffee in her hands. Maria sat across from her, scrolling through photos of her son on her phone. "He's adorable," Pamela said, forcing a smile as Maria showed her a picture of the boy dressed as a superhero for his school play. "He is," Maria replied, her voice softening, "but I missed the play today. Again. I promised him I'd be there, but the manager needed me to cover a shift." Pamela's chest tightened. "That's not fair." Maria shrugged, her expression resigned. "Life's not fair. You learn that pretty quick in this job." The words lingered in the air, heavy and unspoken. Pamela wanted to say something, to apologize, to do something, but she didn't know how. Instead, she sat in silence, the weight of her privilege pressing down on her. The next day, Pamela's frustration boiled over. She was cleaning a suite when a guest, a woman in her 50s with a sharp voice and sharper nails, confronted her about a missing reservation confirmation for an exclusive dinner. "I left the paper right here," the woman snapped, pointing to the desk. "And now it's gone. You must have thrown it away while cleaning." Pamela froze, her heart pounding. "I didn't throw anything away," she said, her voice steady despite the anger bubbling beneath the surface. "I only cleaned the surfaces and emptied the trash. If it was important, I wouldn't have touched it." "Don't play innocent with me," the woman hissed. "I need that confirmation, and you're responsible for this mess. I demand to speak to your manager." The manager, a balding man with a perpetual scowl, arrived within minutes. He listened to the woman's accusations with a nod, then turned to Pamela. "Did you see the paper?" he asked, his tone clipped. No, I didn't, Pamela replied firmly. I didn't touch anything on the desk except to dust it. If it was there, I wouldn't have moved it. The manager's scowl deepened, but before he could say anything, Maria stepped forward. She didn't throw anything away, Maria said firmly. I've been working with her all week. She's meticulous and always double-checks before discarding anything. The manager hesitated, glancing between Pamela, Maria, and the irate guest. Finally, he sighed. Let's check the room again, he told the guest. Maybe it was misplaced. The woman huffed but began searching the room, eventually finding the confirmation slip tucked inside a magazine she had left on the coffee table. She didn't apologize, simply muttered a dismissive thank you before shooing them out of the room. Back in the hallway, Pamela turned to Maria. Thank you, she said, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and gratitude. Maria shrugged. You're one of us now. We look out for each other. The words struck a chord in Pamela, deeper than she expected. She felt a sense of belonging, not as Bruce Appleton's daughter, but as part of a team. But with that belonging came a growing unease. The more she saw, the more she realized how broken the system was. And the more she realized that her father's empire was built on the backs of people like Maria. The days grew shorter, and the weight of Pamela's new reality pressed heavier on her shoulders. She had settled into a routine, but the monotony of her work was punctuated by moments that chipped away at her carefully constructed facade. The more she saw, the harder it became to ignore the injustices around her. One afternoon, as she was cleaning a suite on the top floor, she overheard a conversation between two guests, a man and a woman discussing their plans to exploit a loophole in the hotel's pricing system. They're so disorganized here, the man said with a laugh. We'll save thousands if we play our cards right. Pamela's hands stilled as she listened, her stomach churning. She thought of Maria, who had been denied a raise despite working double shifts, and Raj, who had been forced to pay for his own tools after the hotel's budget cuts. The disparity between the guest's cavalier attitude and her co-workers' struggles was staggering. Later that evening, she brought it up in the break room. Doesn't it bother you? She asked Maria, her voice low but urgent. The way they treat us? The way the hotel treats you? Maria looked up from her phone, her expression unreadable. Of course it bothers me, she said. But what can I do? I need this job. Pamela opened her mouth to argue, but the words caught in her throat. The breaking point came a few days later. Pamela was in the lobby, restocking the complimentary coffee station, when she saw Raj being confronted by a guest, a middle-aged man with a face red with anger. You stole my wallet, the man shouted, jabbing a finger at Raj. I know it was you. Raj shook his head, his hands raised in a gesture of innocence. I didn't take anything, sir. Please, let me help you look for it. Don't lie to me, the man snarled. I want you fired. Pamela's blood boiled. She dropped the coffee packets she was holding and marched over, her heart pounding. Excuse me, she said, her voice cutting through the tension. What's going on here? The man turned to her, his eyes narrowing. This thief stole my wallet. I demand that something be done about it. Pamela glanced at Raj, who looked both terrified and resigned, as if this wasn't the first time he'd been accused of something he didn't do. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. Sir, she said, her tone firm but polite, I understand you're upset, but accusing someone without proof isn't fair. Let's retrace your steps and see if we can find your wallet. The man scoffed. I don't have time for this. Just call the manager. Pamela's patience snapped. I am helping you, she said, her voice rising. And unless you have evidence that Raj took your wallet, you need to stop making baseless accusations. The man stared at her, momentarily speechless. Before he could respond, the manager arrived, his face flushed with irritation. What's going on here? He demanded. The guest launched into a tirade, accusing Raj of theft and demanding his immediate dismissal. Pamela stepped forward, her hands clenched into fists. He didn't do it, she said, her voice steady despite the anger simmering beneath the surface. I was here the whole time. Raj didn't take anything. The manager glanced between Pamela, Raj, and the guest, his expression torn. Finally, he sighed. "Let's check the security footage," he said. "If Raj is innocent, we'll find out." The footage revealed the truth. The guest had left his wallet on the front desk, where it had been picked up by another staff member and placed in the lost and found. The man grumbled an apology, but the damage was done. Raj looked shaken, and Pamela felt a surge of frustration. "This isn't right," she said to the manager after the guest had left. "Raj shouldn't have to go through that. None of us should." The manager shrugged, his expression indifferent. "It's part of the job. Guests are always right. Remember." Pamela bit back a retort, her mind racing. She thought of her father, sitting in his office thousands of miles away, oblivious to the struggles of the people who kept his hotels running. She thought of Maria, Raj, and Sophia, who worked tirelessly for little reward. And she thought of herself, standing in the middle of it all, torn between her old life and her new reality. That night, as she lay in bed, Pamela made a decision. She didn't know how yet, but she was going to do something. She couldn't stand by and watch her coworkers be treated like this. Not anymore. The next morning, Pamela arrived at work early, her mind buzzing with ideas. She sought out Maria, who was already in the break room, sipping a cup of coffee. "I want to help," Pamela said, sitting down across from her. "I don't know how yet, but I want to make things better. For all of us." Maria raised an eyebrow, her expression skeptical. "And how do you plan to do that?" Pamela hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I'm not who you think I am," she said. "My name isn't Pamela Smith. It's Pamela Appleton. My father owns this hotel." Maria's eyes widened, but she didn't say anything. "I didn't tell you before because my father sent me here as punishment, and I couldn't get special treatment," Pamela continued. "But now I think I can use this to help. If you'll let me." Maria studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "All right," she said. "What's the plan?" Pamela smiled, a spark of determination igniting in her chest. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The hotel buzzed with its usual rhythm, but beneath the surface, something had shifted. Pamela's confession to Maria had set a plan in motion, one that required careful coordination and unwavering trust. Over the next few days, Pamela and Maria worked together, gathering information and rallying the staff. They held secret meetings in the break room after hours, speaking in hushed tones about the changes they wanted to see: fair wages, better benefits, and a respectful work environment. Pamela's knowledge of the hotel's operations proved invaluable. She knew where the budget cuts had hit hardest, which policies were outdated, and which managers were most resistant to change. But she also knew that her father's approval would be crucial. Without it, any reforms they implemented would be temporary at best. One evening, as Pamela was finishing her shift, she received a message from Maria. "He's here." Her heart skipped a beat. Bruce Appleton had arrived at the hotel, unannounced and unexpected. Pamela's hands trembled as she smoothed her uniform and made her way to the lobby. She found him standing near the front desk, his sharp eyes scanning the room with the precision of a man who had built an empire from the ground up. "Pamela," he said, his voice cool and measured. "I'd like a word." She nodded, her throat dry, and followed him to a private meeting room. The door clicked shut behind them, and Bruce turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "I've been receiving reports," he began, "about your performance here. It seems you've made quite an impression." Pamela straightened her shoulders, meeting his gaze. "I've been doing my job," she said, "just like everyone else." Bruce raised an eyebrow. "Is that so? Because from what I've heard, you've been doing more than just cleaning rooms. You've been stirring up trouble." Pamela's stomach churned, but she forced herself to stay calm. "If by trouble you mean standing up for my coworkers, then yes, I have." Bruce's eyes narrowed. "Your coworkers? Pamela, you're not one of them. You're an Appleton. You don't belong in a uniform, scrubbing floors and folding sheets." "Maybe I do," Pamela shot back, her voice rising. I've learned more in the past month than I ever did sitting in your boardrooms. These people are the ones keeping this hotel running. And they deserve better. Bruce studied her for a long moment, his expression shifting from frustration to something resembling curiosity. And what, exactly, do you propose? Pamela took a deep breath, her mind racing. This was her chance. I want to implement changes, she said. Fair wages, better benefits, and a respectful work environment. I want to make this hotel a place where people are proud to work, not just a place where they survive. Bruce leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled in front of him. And how do you plan to do that? I've already started, Pamela said. I've been talking to the staff, gathering their feedback. I know where the problems are and I know how to fix them. But I need your support. Bruce was silent for what felt like an eternity. Then slowly he nodded. All right, he said. Show me what you've got. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Pamela presented her findings to her father, backed by data and first-hand accounts from the staff. She proposed a series of reforms, from increasing wages to implementing training programs for managers. Bruce listened intently, his expression growing more impressed with each passing minute. You've done your homework, he admitted as they reviewed the final proposal. But change isn't easy. There will be pushback. I know, Pamela said, but it's worth it. Bruce studied her for a long moment, then nodded. All right, he said. Let's do it. The announcement came the following morning. Bruce gathered the staff in the lobby, his presence commanding attention. Pamela stood beside him, her heart pounding as he outlined the changes. Effective immediately, Bruce said, we will be implementing a series of reforms to improve working conditions for all staff members. These changes include increased wages, better benefits, and new training programs for managers. The room erupted in murmurs of disbelief and excitement. Pamela scanned the crowd, her eyes landing on Maria and Raj. As the meeting concluded, Bruce turned to Pamela. You've done well, he said. But this is just the beginning. There's still a lot of work to be done. Pamela nodded, a sense of determination settling over her. That evening, as Pamela sat in the break room with Maria, Raj, and Sophia, she felt a sense of accomplishment she had never known before. You did it, Raj said, raising her coffee cup in a toast. You actually did it. Pamela smiled, her heart swelling with pride. We did it, she corrected. This is just the beginning. She had started this journey as a spoiled heiress, but she was ending it as something far more. A leader, a friend, and a force for change. The hotel buzzed with a newfound energy, a sense of hope that had been absent for far too long. The reforms Pamela had championed were taking root, and the changes were palpable. Wages had been increased, benefits improved, and a new training program for managers was underway. The staff moved through their duties with a renewed sense of purpose, their smiles genuine and their conversations filled with optimism. Pamela stood in the lobby, her eyes scanning the room with determination. She had traded her uniform for a tailored suit, a symbol of her new role as the hotel's interim manager. It was a position she had earned through hard work and perseverance, and one she was determined to uphold. Maria approached her, a stack of papers in hand. The new schedules are ready, she said, handing them to Pamela. And the staff meeting is set for this afternoon. Pamela nodded, flipping through the schedules. Thanks, Maria. I couldn't have done this without you. Maria smiled, her eyes warm with gratitude. You've done more for us than you realize. This place feels different, like it's finally ours. Pamela returned the smile. The staff meeting that afternoon was a turning point. Pamela stood at the front of the room, her voice steady and confident as she outlined the next steps in their journey. This is just the beginning, she said, her eyes scanning the room. We've made some great changes, but there's still a lot of work to be done. I want this hotel to be a place where everyone feels valued and respected, a place where we can all be proud to work. As the meeting concluded, Bruce approached her, his expression a mix of pride and curiosity. You've done well, he said, his voice filled with admiration. I have to admit, I wasn't sure you had it in you, but you've proven me wrong." Pamela smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "Thanks, Dad. That means a lot." Bruce nodded, his eyes filled with a newfound respect. "I'm proud of you, Pamela. You've grown into a remarkable young woman." Pamela's journey reminds us that true change starts with empathy and action. Could you walk away from luxury to fight for what's right? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to embrace the journey for more inspiring tales. See you next time.